The year was 2013, and back then my mornings always started the exact same way. My babysitter would walk me to school, and every single day she would stop at the corner newsstand to buy me a copy of the newspaper called Hoy. I couldn't really read Spanish yet, but I loved looking at the photos. However, there is one specific morning that I will never be able to erase from my mind. As we walked, she handed me the day's edition. On the front cover, there was a haunting image of a family standing in a massive, jagged pile of gray rubble. Their homes had been completely leveled, turned into nothing but dust and wood. I looked up at my babysitter and asked why their houses were knocked down. She looked down at me with a sad expression and said, "There was a hurricane somewhere in Latin America." I felt that heavy, pit-in-your-stomach sadness that only a kid can feel, and I started flipping through the pages to distract myself. I remember finding a bright, colorful recipe for blueberry muffins near the back. I stared at the photo of the golden muffins for a second, but then I turned the page. On the other side of that recipe was a picture that traumatized me. It was a continuation of the cover story. In the middle of that same pile of debris, a woman was kneeling. She was hunched over the body of a man, but as my eyes focused, my heart stopped. His head was gone. It was a gruesome, jagged scene of pure carnage. Right there in a newspaper I was holding with my small, trembling hands, I assumed it was her husband, and the image of her reaching out toward that empty space where his head should have been stayed with me for a decade. I slammed the paper shut. I didn't say a word to my babysitter. I just felt sick. Fast forward to about 3 years ago. I was an adult moving out of my parents' house, and I found an old box of school memories. At the very bottom was that exact issue of Hoy from 2013. My heart started hammering against my ribs as I pulled it out. I wanted to see if it was as bad as I remembered, or if my childhood brain had just made it scarier than it actually was. I found the cover with the family in the rubble. I flipped past the ads until I found the blueberry muffin recipe. My breath hitched in my throat. I slowly turned the page. I stared at that photo for a long time. The man was indeed lying there, and the woman was indeed kneeling over him. But as an adult, I noticed something I had completely missed as a child. The man wasn't wearing the clothes of a local villager. He was wearing a tactical vest and heavy combat boots, and the woman kneeling over him, she wasn't crying. In the high-resolution print, her expression was clear. She was smiling, and in her right hand, partially hidden by the shadow of a broken concrete beam, she was gripping a blood-stained machete. I did some digging online later that night. It turns out that hurricane had provided the perfect cover for a local cartel to move through the displaced villages and clean up their rivals while the entire world was distracted by the weather reports. The most chilling part, the newspaper had printed that image as a tragedy of the storm, because even the editors hadn't looked closely enough to see what was actually happening in that pile of rubble.